Hello everyone and welcome to the Waterstones vlog. My name is Will and I'm sat here amongst the classics on the first floor of Waterstones on Piccadilly, which is quite frankly a very lovely place to be. I'm very excited to get this vlog started. If you haven't subscribed already, do hit that subscribe button. Either I or one of the amazing team of booksellers here at Waterstones will be here every Friday with personal book recommendations. And there is of course all sorts of other video content here on this channel, interviews, bookshelf tours, there's all sorts going on. So make sure you hit that subscribe button and come and join us for regular bookish goodness. Now, how do I start off a vlog? This is what I've been thinking about for weeks. What book am I going to talk about? And what I've decided to do is to talk to you about my outstanding read of 2017 so far. And I'm using the word outstanding very carefully here because I don't like the word best. You know, when people say, what's the best book you've ever read? Or what's the best book you've read this year? What does best mean? I don't know. I don't really like favourite either. That sounds a bit like you're talking about a pet or a child. So I'm using the word outstanding, and that's because if you read a lot of books like I do, and you try and read a lot of great books, obviously, and even brilliant books will fade from your memory slightly as you read more books. So what are the books that really stick in your mind as you get towards the end of a year and think about what your favourite reads have been? And it is often books that have got something slightly outstanding about them, something that makes it stick in your head. And that is why I wanted to talk to you about this book, which is Reservoir 13 by Jon McGregor. Now, I've been following Jon McGregor since I read his debut, If Nobody Speaks of Remarkable Things, which looks like that. And I absolutely love this book. It's written in a way where none of the characters are identified by name. They're only referred to by sort of some characteristic, often physical, about them. And this was a sort of stylistic quirk that I know some readers found a bit strange. I found it really hypnotic and in fact very engaging, and it meant that by the end of that book I felt like I'd made a real investment in all of these characters, and I found it very moving. It's one of the few books to actually draw tears for me because I don't cry very easily when I read, but this one certainly did get me. His other novel, Even the Dogs, was written in a slightly strange narrative style using the first person plural, so sort of chorus narration, always being referred to as we, which is quite unusual in novels. You don't see it very often. And so McGregor is something of a stylist. And so what, you may be asking, is the stylistic quirk of Reservoir 13? Well, it isn't really a stylistic thing so much as a book that I think does something quite different in terms of how you feel time as you're reading it. And that's why it's my outstanding read of 2017. I'll try and explain what I mean. The book begins with a girl's disappearance. This is in a sort of rural community in the Peak District. And what you might then expect in many novels is to find out more about this girl, why she might have disappeared, what's happened to her. You're expecting there might be a body somewhere. It'll be sort of like a thriller or a mystery plot. But that is not what this book is about at all. And in fact, in many ways, and I suppose this is like an anti-spoiler spoiler, it isn't really about what happens to this girl. It isn't really about discovering the truth there. It is far more about what this disappearance does to the community around her. And what we see in the 13 chapters of this book are 13 years pass after her disappearance. And there are plenty of books that, of course, show the passage of time. So what do I mean when I say that this one shows it slightly differently? As I said, each chapter is a whole year within this community. And what McGregor does is to sort of give you little snippets of people's lives throughout the course of the year. It's an omniscient narrator, so it's a bit like sort of floating around this community and getting to sort of be a fly on the wall of various people's households and seeing how people grow up, how people fall in love and then out of love, how relationships change, how people grow and change either together with people or apart from them. And mixed together with that are some very keenly observed sort of natural world details. So as well as seeing the people in this community go through the course of a year, we feel crops growing and being harvested. We see animals going through their annual life cycle. And that is what felt new to me. And so the cumulative effect of that over 13 chapters is that you really do feel as though you have been watching time pass in a very natural sense. And it has this same hypnotic quality. So I found myself getting really drawn into the sort of annual cycle. I could feel the seasons. That's a very English thing, of course, so this idea of having very distinct seasons throughout the year. Seeing the sort of the things that happen locally, like the local well dressing, which is sort of a almost folk festival that they have every year, and seeing how important or unimportant that is depending on what's going on in the community. Their annual New Year celebration, which are always marked, of course, by being the time of year at which the girl had gone missing. It's amazing, I think, at making you feel time pass in a way that I've never felt with a book before. And one thing I will say actually is that I tried to read this book once and I found it quite hard to start, found it quite hard to get into. And so I went back to it another time when I felt a bit calmer, I suppose, more receptive to it. And I'm so glad I did, because I was in the right frame of mind to read it and I enjoyed it so much. I really do think McGregor is a writer to keep an eye on. All of his books are interesting in one way or another, but I think that this one is absolutely fantastic and more than deserves its place on the Man Booker long list. Just a brief word on the Man Booker long list. It's an incredible list this year, some amazing books, some very big hitting authors on there. Ali Smith, Zadie Smith, George Saunders, Paul Auster, Arundhati Roy, but also a couple of debut novelists on there as well. And so I think it's quite an exciting list this year. The sort of big books that you might expect, some sort of middle books that you might be hoping for, and then some real debut authors, which I think is very exciting. I'm hoping to get to read some more of the books on the list, but in the meantime, if you wanted a recommendation from me, I absolutely would recommend Reservoir 13 by Jon McGregor. And I hope I've been able to explain a little bit about why I think it's such a fantastic book, what makes it outstanding for me, as opposed to many of the other brilliant books that I've read this year. So there we go. That's the first vlog. That wasn't too bad, was it? You'll be able to find more details about this book and about McGregor's other books in the description below. I would love to hear from you if you've read Reservoir 13 and what you thought about it. If you've read other books by Jon McGregor, and indeed if you've read other books on the Man Booker long list, what are your tips for this year? Do you think you know which book is going to win? I would love to hear more. Do come in next week, where Sian will be talking about Laini Taylor's Strange the Dreamer. Very much looking forward to seeing her first vlog. I hope you will join us then. And most importantly, hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, do all those things that you're supposed to do, and we will see you next week. Take care.